Hey guys, welcome back. Daryl here from Sweet Hot Rods and Honey. And today we're going to give the engine oil prime and see how that goes so that we can determine if we've got oil pressure or not when we do our startup. So hang around, let's see what this engine looks like. All right, I've got a oil pressure gauge, a manual gauge hooked up to the outside fitting near the oil filter. I don't know if you can see it down there, but it's there. And so we'll see about building pressure. All right, let's crank this baby and see what we have. I got the plugs pulled out, so there's no compression. So, we've got all assembly lube on all the, on the bearings, and so everything should be lubricated until we build up some pressure. So let me give this a shot. All right, here we go. All right, I'm going to stop at 20 and let's check underneath the truck to see if we've got any leaks. Oh, holy shit. We've got major leak in the back of the engine. I'm guessing that we either have one of the plug pipe fittings in the back of the engine, or the main seal is something screwed up there. I can't believe it. There's no leaks anywhere else. On the top of the engine at the oil filter, that's fine. The top of the engine, let me see. I didn't really. No, I'm feeling at the oil pressure sensor, at the sensor behind the manifold, and that's dry. Oh, this is just unbelievable. I can't believe we've got a big leak down below. All right, the top of the engine is dry, but the bottom of the engine is not. Let me see if we can see it from here. I'll get another flashlight. Yeah, let's see if we can get up there. Yeah, it is wet, and I think we're looking at the flywheel. Oh, the center of the flywheel, there's oil dripping there. There's actually oil dripping across the whole back edge of the oil pan. But my guess is that it's either the main seal or a fitting, the back of the engine, that is failed. Oh man, so yeah, this is not good. It is a bummer. I had a tough day the other day putting in the windshield and struggling with that. And two bad attempts at things are wearing me out. So I guess what I'm gonna do is get the transmission cross member, drop that, prepare to unbolt the transmission at least, and see if I can just pull the transmission off without pulling the whole engine, and see what the problem is. Or it just might be easier to pull the engine, transmission out. I got to disassemble a lot of wiring, just a bunch of stuff. The radiator, the transmission cooler, a bunch of crap. All right, well, what else am I going to do? I don't have a choice. Let's get this engine torn down and pulled out.
Soundstripe. Soundstripe.
It's been a few days since we've been trying to disassemble the engine to pull and fix this oil leak. We had Thanksgiving, so I was traveling, and so we're back at it. We finished taking off the transmission cross member mount and some of the hoses. I think I've got everything disconnected. We got the speedometer. It was mainly stuff that I didn't get earlier last week, and it was mainly from the back edge of the transmission stuff. So I think we've got everything disassembled. I'm gonna hook up the engine hoist, and we'll see if we can pull this thing out without breaking anything, I hope. There's no way. I think it fit under, the legs fit under the truck okay. Might have to jack it up just to get this thing launched in here. Okay, let's see. Getting back to transmission, there was one of the motor mounts that was still sticking up, and it was holding back the engine. So it dropped. The transmission dropped back. And I think we're I'm gonna release this jack. Since the weight of the engine is off of the frame, so we can maneuver this. All right, we gotta take this out. Nice and gentle. I think we're clear of the firewall. Let me just double check, make sure none of this wire harness is connected to anything. We've got enough slack. That's good. We're clear. We put the part back here. Put it back under. It looks like things are clear. Nope. Oh, I forgot to take the battery cable off of the starter. I got the battery disconnected here, so. All right. Oh, goodness. I gotta take the battery cable off, and then the crank position sensor is still hooked up. Did I mention before, we got things loose. Some of the sensor wires I've labeled, ones that are in the back of the block, the cam position sensor, the oil sensor, and I just want to tidy up some of these wires a little bit before any get ripped. So I'm going to wrap them with electrical tape. And there's going to be a wire loom that I'm going to be putting on here anyway. But some of these bare wires I want to protect right now because they can easily get ripped while we're pulling and eventually putting the engine back in. And I don't want to have bad wiring because that is really difficult to track down. So putting this electrical tape one here, and we'll finish pulling the engine out. I think everything is loose. I did forget the fuel line going up to the fuel rails. That was disconnected, but I had a zip ties holding it away from exhaust pipes. So those kind of things I'm finding. The other thing was, what was it? I don't know. All right, let me just see if we can get this thing out without damaging anything else. All right, we're about maxed out here. We can't back up much more. Now with my coil on. What we'll have to do is roll the truck back. If I can. We have about 2 feet behind us that we can roll the truck back. That's it. Clear everything here.
Soundstripe.
I got my helper out here, but my wife said, no, that's a little bit too lame for me. Now, actually, she had a new knee replacement done a few weeks ago and still recovering. So here we are. We're pressing on, trying to do the best we can. And learning some new curse words. In the meantime, so I think what I'm going to do, well, he put a new one on, but because these seems excessively long, I may cut this transmission line here and then take the same length off of the dipstick from from here to here, that length I'll remove from the dipstick and remake the marks on the end of the dipstick, and I'll probably do the same thing here, or I might just get a different dipstick because that one doesn't want to stay together too well, and we can probably do a nicer job. So, all right, for now, I'm going to set this engine down and start separating the block from the tranny and try to figure out why we have such an excessive amount of oil coming out of this area, and it was kind of in front of the flywheel. So I'm thinking it's that rear panel that covers up the cam and the end of the block. I bought a new one, and I'm gonna hopefully it's the seal and the cover. So we bought a new one. Also, I doubt it because I think I put the rear main seal on there correctly, but it could be the rear main seal that's off center, so there would be a gap and not sealing all the way around. But we'll find out after we pull the transmission apart. It's the next day, it's Thursday, and I've got the engine out, and I just disassembled, I separated the engine and tranny. So, nothing with the tranny. Should have been leaking because I didn't put any ATF in it. But I can see, yep, for sure, it's wet back there, and it had been leaking, but let me show you what I found. We may not have found the problem, but I sure see a smoking gun. And at the top of the engine, the oil pressure sensor, this guy, feeds down to the top of the block into the oil, the chamber where there's oil being pushed through. And I see a lot of oil right there. What I suspected initially was that the cover, that I had a seal issue with the cover, but I haven't cranked it over to get some oil pressure in the system, but I'm going to do that just to confirm and see if we have a leak there at that sensor and if there's any more leaks around. So that's probably my problem. All right, so I've got the camera set up and it is pointing at that. Here's the oil pressure sender. We're checking this area and quite certain that's where the problem's at. I need some better connections on this battery. Okay, let's give this another try. Oh, by the way, I've been referring to the oil sensor, but I'm mistaken. The oil sensor is up here, but this is the cam position sensor that I think is causing the problem. So this is the base of the cam position sensor. Let me get this lined up. Let's see what happens here. Well, that's not the problem at all. It's this top seal, totally blown out. Oil just gushed out of the top of the cover. So I wonder why that could be. Let me just see if I can tighten those bolts up, and maybe I just didn't torque them down right. Well, that was quite a surprise. I didn't realize that thing could leak that much. Those bolts are torqued down to the proper spec. And so I'm going to take off the flywheel and take off that back cover. I'm glad that I bought a new cover because this one is no good. I have the cover off, and after a closer inspection, the gasket, I put gasket sealer at the bottom corners, and that was fine, but the main area that it was leaking was this seal. It's a new gasket that I put on, and I did not torque it down to the correct spec because it was these bolts all came out relatively easy. Now I'm gonna have to the little donuts for each of the bolt holes is stuck in the block. I'll have to get those off. I'll clean this surface off and prep it for the other cover. I think this cover still looks fine, but I don't know. As far as warping or whatever, I don't know. I'm not going to measure it. I'm going to put the new cover on and at least torque these down quite a bit, because it looks like this is high pressure coming through these oil galleys, and these look like they probably go up to the lifters, push rods, and then the lifters and then the push rods. So they're under high pressure. The bottom section down here, I don't think it is as high a pressure, but it does, there are problems occasionally with leaking around the main seal, the rear main seal, and maybe even at the bottom of the oil pan, or this cover at the oil pan. So let me clean this up, prep it. I'm gonna double check what the spec should be for torquing it, and we'll give it another try. Well, I'm embarrassed. Sometimes you make mistakes that you really regret. And I don't know why I made this mistake when I originally put this engine back together after I rebuilt it. And there goes my credibility for rebuilding an engine, but I've done it before. But this is one of those mistakes that I just did not see. And let me show you why we had a gusher out of that gasket. Maybe you already noticed, I didn't get all of the old gasket off. And it's kind of hard to see, but here's the old gasket. And even though I torqued everything down to spec, because this gasket was on there, that's why we had a gusher. So that's my fault, and I regret. Whoa. Wait a minute. There's actually, it's even worse than that. I didn't get all of the old gasket off of here. There's like Oh man, this is very embarrassing. Huge mistakes were made when I built this. I forgot to take off the entire gasket. So I actually had 2 gaskets on, and that's exactly why it leaks so bad. So now we've got all the gasket material off. All the gaskets are off. And we've got a new back plate and new gasket. I'm going to put RTV in the 2 bottom corners of the gasket and put it on. It gets torqued to 22 foot-pounds on all of the face bolts. I think it's a little bit less for the oil pan, these 2 bolts. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on, and this time before we put everything back together, we're going to test it as it sits right now. So this is attempt 2. I put RTV gasket maker on each of the corners down here before the on the inside of the gasket, on the outside of the gasket, between the gasket and this cover. Lubricated the crank and also lubricated the seal just so I could slip it on there, and put a couple bolts here. So I have an alignment tool which is used to align the cover to the crank, and that is centered right there. So what I'm going to do is do a cross pattern of putting the bolts in at 22 foot-pounds and keep this on, and then the last thing is to put the oil pan, 2 oil pan bolts on the bottom here. So let me do that, and we'll all right, everything is torqued to 22 foot-pounds. Actually, I have it set for 23, but all right, these are looking good. We kept our centering hub on here. So the rear main seal should be centered. Also, we got to put these 2 oil pan gas bolts in. But behind here, I forgot to mention that the barbell is in place, and that's important just for proper oil pressure. The O-ring looked okay, so pulled it out, cleaned it off, looked at it, inspected the O-ring. That was fine. So we put it back in. And so I'm going to put the 2 other oil pan bolts in, and put the flywheel back on, and hook it up, and we'll crank it up again and see if we've got leaks or no leaks. Okay, we're set up. The moment of truth. Let's give it a shot. Pressure, 25, 30. That's still rising. I don't see any oil leaks right now. We built oil pressure up to about 30 pounds, and that's fine. I didn't continue to keep going, but I just loosely put these flywheel bolts in. I'm going to take the flywheel off, inspect around the main seal, and if it looks dry, I think we fixed this problem. So yeah, let me finish wrapping this up. Well, I think we got the main problem fixed. And so I put the flywheel back on, torqued it to 75 foot-pounds, and I'm gonna just run it a few times with the battery just to crank and build oil pressure, let it settle back, do it again. We'll do that a few times and double check any leaks around the gasket as well as around the main seal. I guess there was a couple things that did come out of this in a good way, and one is that when I put the air conditioning compressor on, I didn't double check to see if there was any oil or how much oil was in there. So I'm gonna have to take this compressor off and dump out the oil, measure it, make sure it's clean as well as the right amount. So I'll do that. I did double check the cam position sensor up top here. I pulled it out, looked at the O-ring. That looked okay. So yeah, I guess the main learning experience here is that I should have cranked this engine before I put it into the truck. There could be other problems. I hope that there's not with sensors or even the wiring. So those are the things that I fear. But I think, and also the transmission. So I haven't tested the transmission out. So I'll cycle the oil through a few times. And we'll put the transmission back on, together with the engine, put it in the truck, and hopefully get all the wiring straightened out. I marked all the connectors to the appropriate sensors, and so I think we're pretty good there. So anyway, I'm going to wrap up this video. It's gone on way too long and been too frustrating and really too stupid on my part. I should have seen the gasket material and the gasket on the block, and that was a mistake I made. So I hope you guys learn from this. Double check, test before you commit too much work and get things too involved. So I bet I was the guilty one today. So, all right, well, thanks for watching, and I'll have some more videos coming up in the near future, and take care. We'll see you next time. Bye.